Welcome in, everyone, to another fascinating episode of Life Without Limits, where there are no limits to what you can achieve, truly, especially with emotional freedom techniques, which is one of my favorite subjects. My whole purpose is to inspire you and motivate you to live your best life. And what better way than with emotional freedom techniques? My name is Joan Kaler, and I am a certified practitioner of EFT from EFT International. I'm a consultant and teacher around the world. I do counseling in Pennsylvania. So anything you need help with as far as life stress, anxiety, depression, trichotillomania, which is hair pulling, dermatillomania, life change, adjusting to a new chapter in your life, anything that you need help with, I am here to serve you. So after explaining that, let me go and introduce my guest, Carol Richard, who I'm going to read her biography because it's fascinating. All right. Carol is an accredited certified EFT practitioner, also with EFT International. This is really cool, everyone. She is bilingual in both French and English. And by the way, she lives in Canada, so she has an amazing accent. Wait until you hear this. I love the Canadian accent. Carol helps people who struggle with sleeping problems, and she teaches them how to fall asleep naturally using EFT. She helps her clients look at 6 different areas in their lives: health, family, work, money, or spirituality, to see which areas carrying stress and being overwhelmed causing you to lose sleep. When we have a truly busy monkey brain, it can be a result of lack of sleep at night. And who hasn't had a monkey brain, including yours truly? Carol offers one-on-one sessions as well as workshops. She's in the process of developing a 6-week course to be offered in person or online that would help people look at those 5 areas of their lives to reduce stress in order to fall asleep naturally. Carol herself suffered from severe lack of sleep a few years ago and saw her life falling apart. Her stress started because of work and then started affecting other areas in her life. She did not know EFT at that time and found herself lost and alone. She is going to share with us how she found EFT at the time and how it has completely changed her life. I'm really looking forward to that. The results that she experienced with tapping were so remarkable that she can't imagine not doing this for the rest of her life. And you will understand that too. So without further ado, I want to welcome in Carol Richard to the podcast. Hi,
Hi, Joan.
Carol. Hi,
Hi, Joan.
it's so nice to be with you.
It is. I'm really excited that you asked me to do this podcast today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Carol, since you know both French and English, I have no idea if there are any bilingual people out there, but how can you say welcome? How do you say in French, welcome to this podcast?
Bienvenue à notre podcast aujourd'hui avec Joan Kaler.
Thank you. Wasn't that
Welcome.
beautiful, everyone? For those of you who know French, I know merci. That's as far as it goes. And merci with a Western Pennsylvania accent is not French. But, so, Carol, in your introduction, you mentioned how you were completely stressed out from work and how EFT turned your life around. Tell us a little bit about your story. What happened that you had trouble sleeping?
So, a few years ago, I found myself in a job at work. Well, at first, I loved my job. I had really good people around me, but I found myself having to work more and more. We had a new computer system installed, and my job was the part that was my job was very stressful, and it caused me to work like 80 hours a week. And
Oh, wow.
I found myself constantly thinking about work. Even when I wasn't at work, I was thinking about work. um, And you know, at first you're handling it, you know, you're, oh, I'm okay. And then we were dealing with issues that were affecting other people. And so that's where my stress came, because I felt it was my duty to keep working and keep working so that other people could not have to have issues happen to them with their pay. So I would, at that time, just leave my desk, go for a little cry, come back, and think, oh, everything's good, keep going. And then I stopped sleeping. When I stopped sleeping at first, I thought, oh, not a big deal, a few bad night sleeps. But then that turned into probably like a year of not sleeping, of getting 3 to 4 hours at night.
Oh.
Yeah. And then from that, I went to my doctor, who gave me sleeping pills. And I begged for sleeping pills because I was like, I just need to sleep. Like, if I could just sleep, then things would be perfect, right? So I started taking sleeping pills, and the max you can take is 2 in a night. And so the month before I went off work, I was taking 2 sleeping pills a night. And if I got 2 to 3 hours, that was my max I was sleeping.
Really? On
Yeah,
2 sleeping pills a
on,
night?
on 2 sleeping pills. I used to describe that my brain was like on fire, and it had an on switch and it was broken. There was no more
Oh.
off switch to my brain. And so then I was working 80 hours a week, keep going, keep going. I would wake up in the night with the solution to a problem. And like, because I didn't want to forget it, I would get up and go to work at my with my laptop at home, because I was like, let's keep going. And I had, you know, a good support at work. I had great coworkers, but I took on the stress in a different way because of who I am. So that was one thing that caused lack of sleep. But also with that, once you get to that amount of stress, um, it trickles into your family, whether you want to or not. It trickles
Mhm.
into your family. I had a teenage kid at home, so hormones with a teenager, and you know, trying to work 80 hours a week but still find enough time for your family. And then I started having health issues. Um, I had not been on antibiotics for any kind of infection or anything in probably about 6 years. And I went to the doctor, and I had such a bad sinus infection and I couldn't get over it. I had to be on antibiotics. And she said to me, like, you haven't been on antibiotic for a long time. You're usually very healthy. Like, what's going on? And, you know, like, of course, the tears flow because you're like, I'm so sick, but I have to keep working. So she ended up putting me off work, and I was off work for a total of 5 months. Um,
Oh.
but so when she first put me off work, I she said continue with the sleeping pills, but I didn't want any other pills. I didn't want an anxiety medication or anything.
Mhm.
I knew enough to know that it was situational, that it was stress from what was going on around me. So I took a step back and I said, okay, how am I going to deal with this? And I found an energy practitioner. She didn't do EFT. She did NATE, NAET, which is a
Mhm.
different type of energy work.
Right, right.
And so I started seeing her because she can measure the stress level in your body. And usually, like, you need to be between 100 and 200. And she measured mine, it was like 8,000, which was, yeah. And she said, I don't even know how you're still functioning. But I was that bad of shape from lack of sleep that, like, even the sensation in my hands felt funny because I wasn't breathing properly, like not taking good breaths. So I I was seeing her, and I asked her about tapping because I had seen a video from Nick Hortner, and she didn't do tapping, but she said, Carol, I hear great things about it. So I listened to that video, decided I'm going to try this tapping thing, and didn't really know what I was doing. And so what I would do is I would drive my daughter to school in the morning, and then I would go sit in the woods. We have beautiful trails here in PEI, and there's one right next to a river. And I would go sit there, and I was like, okay, Nick Hortner said you have to be specific. You have to be specific. So I would sit there and I would just say, like, even though I feel all this guilt because I'm not at work, and I'm feeling guilty because I left my beautiful coworkers behind, you know, to deal with my workload. I'm feeling shame because of that, you know, and so I would tap, go through the points. Didn't really know what I was doing. Um, but I know that before I started tapping, and now this is not diagnosed, but I'm going to call them panic attacks because I don't know what other words you would call them. I would get these like flashes of like heart beating fast and like the, so to me, it
That's
was
a
a panic.
panic attack. Yep. Especially if it
And I
came
would be
out of the
having,
blue. Hmm.
yeah, I was having 7 or 8 of them a day.
A
When I first,
day.
a day, when I first went off work, there was,
Oh,
because once I stopped working, it's like I got worse, right? Because I was no longer busy and my brain didn't know how to handle not having something to do.
mm-hmm.
So I would have these little, and they weren't big. It wasn't like a full blown panic attack, but just once in a while in a day, I would feel like, oh, overwhelmed and didn't know what to do. And so 7 or 8, because I was charting them because it was new to me. And within 2 weeks of tapping, sitting in the woods, they were all gone, all gone. And so, and I remember one day saying to my husband, like, geez, I didn't have any of those thing happened to me today. And he was like, really? Because like you were having them, pretty much every hour before. So it was like, I went back to the energy therapist I was seeing, and I said to her, I said, I don't know why the doctor put me off work. I said, this makes no sense to me why she thought I couldn't work. Because I had brought myself, I had reduced the guilt and the stress and the overwhelm from work in 2 weeks to where I couldn't even understand why the doctor had put me off work. And she said, do you want me to read the file of the first day you came in here? I'll tell you why the doctor put you off work. And I was like, oh, yeah, I did feel all that. But in tapping, we all know this thing called the apex effect, where you forget. Once you reduce the stress and you kind of rewire your brain, is all I can think that happened to me.
Right.
I completely forgot about how bad I felt. But then I remembered because she told me, and I started journaling, and then I was like, wow, this is just incredible. Like, what did I just do? And what is this EFT? And from there, it has been every day I listen to something about EFT. I found where to get certified. I've taken the course Tapping Out of Trauma because I wanted to know more. I just can't get enough of EFT.
I know.
And
That's
yeah,
that is an addiction in and of itself, but it's a good addiction.
it is. Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah. So from there, I'm now certified, and I truly want my niche to be about people who are struggling with sleep. Having lived it, it was the worst time of my life that I now consider the best time of my life, because if I wouldn't have gone through that, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I wouldn't have the compassion and the care to help other people struggling with sleep. And it's just truly amazing to work with someone who is struggling with sleep and within a few months they're sleeping again.
Yes. And
Yeah.
with all the challenges I've had, sleep has never been one of them, because I'll
Mm.
go and I'll watch TV and then I start getting drowsy, or I'll eat my dinner and then I'll start getting drowsy and then I'm out. So I have a pretty solid uh 6.5 hours sleep.
Wow.
I mean, I probably toss and turn because things seem a bit disheveled in the morning. And the other night I couldn't find the TV remote. It fell on the floor somehow. And I thought, I must have been really active last night for the remote to be on the floor. But
Uh,
sleep has never been a problem for me. But I
yeah.
so sympathize with anyone, because I have many clients that come to me and say, Joan, I can't shut off my brain. I'm not
Mm.
getting enough sleep. What should I do? So, and that sleep is when our bodies do most of our healing.
And healing.
When,
It
yeah,
truly is. Sleep is when your body restores itself. So if you're not sleeping and it's not like, especially in our brain, like sleep is when our brain, we need to go through like 4 REMs of sleep or 4 sleep cycles in a night. And it's during that deep sleep that your brain regenerates and then helps your body heal. But when you're not sleeping at all, there's no way you can function because you haven't had that restorative sleep in your brain. And not only does it cause health, well, it causes health issues, it causes weight gain issues. Like somebody who is dieting and exercising but is not getting enough sleep, they'll struggle with weight issue because they're not having enough sleep. It's amazing the amount of people that don't sleep. I joined a Facebook group an insomnia Facebook group, and had to remove myself from it because there's so many people not sleeping. I was like, it's incredible how much lack of sleep is such an epidemic now in our world. But it's because of stress and anxiety and overwhelm and our brains not being able to shut off, right?
Yes,
So it's
yes.
finding the way to deal with those everyday things that happen, and then your sleep will return again naturally.
Okay.
In most cases, I mean, there are exceptions where it's medical, or if you've had 10 cups of coffee,
Right,
no
right.
amount of tapping will help you if you've just put, there's a good, I don't, how do you call that? A study that I found that says that when you drink a cup of coffee, half hour after, it's you're at the peak. So that's the peak of caffeine in your body. But 7 hours after you've had that cup of coffee, you still have half that caffeine going through your brain and your body.
Wow.
So, so if you have a cup of coffee at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that means that 9 o'clock at night, if you, like, I go to bed at 9 because I wake up at 5. So if I have a 2 o'clock cup of coffee at 9 p.m., I still have half that caffeine going through my brain.
That's
So
incredible. So if somebody says they have coffee or iced tea or something
anything
caffeinated
with
at 5 or
caffeine,
6 o'clock, it's still going to be in their brain at 11 o'clock or 12
12,
midnight.
1, yeah. And so
Wow.
your body is fighting and your liver is fighting to get that caffeine out of your body, which is causing you to be awake. And then, so, and some people will say, oh, caffeine doesn't affect me. And for some people, that's true. Caffeine doesn't affect them the way other people that are more sensitive to caffeine. But if you're not sleeping and you're saying caffeine doesn't affect me, then why don't you try cutting it out and
Yes.
see
Yes.
if that is right? Because if you're having caffeine in the afternoon and you're
Mm,
sleeping, then you're right, it doesn't affect you.
right.
But for the ones who it does affect, even though they think it doesn't, try cutting it out and see what happens. Because
Well, and I would always caution anybody about doing that slowly, because when you're
mm,
addicted to caffeine, you can get some
oh,
serious
headache,
migraine headaches. So you have
yeah,
to go really slow when you start cutting
yeah,
back on
on
caffeine.
caffeine. And
Yeah.
they don't have to cut it out completely.
Hmm.
Just, have your morning coffee or two in the morning. But from lunchtime on, try not to have anything with caffeine in it
Yes. Hmm.
to improve your sleep, right? So it is not an all or nothing, because I
Right.
still enjoy my caffeine in the morning. Um, but I'm very, like, once in a while I'll have a bad night's sleep. Even though this is this is my passion, I still, have some nights where I don't sleep. And then I always do a check with myself. Why did I not sleep? Is it because I have too much on my plate? Is it because I had some stress today that I didn't tap away before bed? Or did I have that afternoon caffeine because I was meeting a friend?
Hmm.
And so but I never have two bad night sleeps in a row now, because I know what to do to get myself back to sleep.
And what I'd like to do now, Carol, is I want to invite everyone to part 2 of
Mm,
our podcast. So you could actually go through some setup phrases for people for sleep,
yeah,
to explain in depth where the points are for emotional freedom techniques, how to create a setup phrase, how to do the reminder phrase, all that good stuff. So
perfect.
I'm going to pause it here, and everyone who's listening and watching, thank you for joining us. Please return for part 2, where Carol will actually give you some setup statements and some tapping techniques for getting a better night's sleep. So come on
Perfect.
back.